orange glow illuminated his face. Caleb Torrs. Suddenly, she wasn't cold anymore because Caleb was, well, not the kind of guy she felt cold around. He was the exact opposite, in fact, the kind of guy who stirred up an internal bonfire with just one glance. Not that he ever noticed her. He was into bad girls, which made sense because he was totally a bad boy. Black leather jacket and motorcycle boots. Black jeans with the knees ripped out. Tangled dark hair and a stony face. Dark eyes watched her in the glow of the flame from his lighter. She cleared her throat nervously and glanced toward the fire pit again. Maybe. I don't know. He doused the lighter, shrouding himself in darkness again. Maybe I've seen him. His disembodied voice curled around her like smoke. Who are you looking for? Why do you think it's a him? The words tumbled out before she could stop them. His responding laugh was low, sending a tingle up her spine. She bit her lip, trying to make out his features, but all she saw was the faint glint of light from his eyes and the curve of his mouth, curled into a smirk. She might as well ask him, since she'd looked everywhere else. Gus, lacrosse guy? The lighter flicked, and she noticed his smirk morph into a grimace. Then he doused the flame, shrouding them in darkness again. What are you, a pyro or something? Maybe. He shifted against the railing, running a hand through his tangled hair. His hair was the stuff of legends and fantasies at Skyridge High. Maybe even a few of her fantasies, but that was pointless because A, he had a girlfriend, and B, Mandy was in love with Gus. Whatever. She stepped toward the door, frustrated with his bad boy act and the way she was distracted by his rock star hair. I don't have time for games. Have fun torching Kay's house. She wanted to get out of here. This definitely wasn't how her birthday was supposed to turn out. Caleb stepped away from the railing, moving into the light spilling from the kitchen onto the deck. God, he was... She took a breath. Whatever. Yeah, he was hot, but he was also a jerk, based on all the rumors she'd heard, and she didn't have time for that. Guys like Caleb were the reason she liked Gus. Sweet, adorable Gus, who definitely didn't own a lighter. I saw him, Caleb said, taking another step toward her. His hair shadowed his face, but she still felt the heat of his gaze. He and Kay headed for the fire pit a while ago. Gus? And Kay? He was with the most evil girl in school? Mandy swallowed, telling herself Caleb had to be mistaken. He glanced toward the dark yard. Not sure if they're still out there. Now what? Should she try to find Gus to ask him to take her home? But what if he really was with Kay doing... Whatever. She definitely didn't want to interrupt that. But he wouldn't. Not with Kay. It was her he was supposed to be with tonight. She was the one he's supposed to be dragging away to the bonfire, not Kay. Trust the signs, she told herself, though she wasn't sure exactly what the signs were, other than badass Caleb flicking his lighter and telling her something she didn't want to hear. She glanced at her mood ring, brown, for confused and restless. Well, thanks, I guess, she said, turning toward the deck steps. She'd head out to the fire pit and see if Gus was there. He still hadn't replied to her text, and she didn't want to think too hard about what that might mean. As she reached the first step, the wind kicked up, lifting the skirt of her dress. She tugged it down, and the sudden flick of Caleb's lighter made her flinch. She swore she could feel his eyes boring into her back as she clattered down the deck, hugging herself and wishing for a coat. Caleb watched Mandy stumble down the steps, her crazy red hair swirling in the wind. This party sucked, and his brief interchange with the Queen of School Spirit had the potential to entertain him, but she was obviously too focused on Gus to stick around and make his night more interesting. Too bad, because even though she was everything he hated about high school wrapped up in one sparkly package, she was still... intriguing. He flicked his lighter again, watching the flame dance in the wind. It was an old Zippo, etched with a skull and crossbones. He smirked as he thought of Mandy calling him a pyro. Hardly. He didn't even smoke. But he'd had this lighter for years, ever since he found it in his brother Mike's room after he left for college. Caleb held on to it as a weird...